If you combine Little John with Little Wayne, would you get a full-size John Wayne? 2014 is drawing to a close, and one of the most popular songs of the year is Turn Down for What? A stunning philosophical inquiry into the nature of hedonism by DJ Snake and Little John. Let's listen and try to appreciate the depth of what's being posited here.
Turn down for what? Turn down for what?
Fascinating. The chorus and title of the song is a rhetorical question concerning what could possibly be worth interrupting the party for. Turning up is getting higher or more stoned or more drunk, and turning down means reining it in a bit. The chorus simply asks, turn down for what? And that's a fair question. Many people believe that there's some sort of higher purpose to life, but as we've discussed before, meaning is what you make of it. And there's no really objective response to Little John's question. Valuing the happiness that's brought by booze, drugs, and partying is just as valid as any other kind of happiness. There is, however, a possible neurological objection. If you'll recall way back in episode 7, nice hat. The hedonic treadmill is the principle describing how our brains have a tendency to normalize their responses to various stimulus. Whether that stimulus is a non-stop rock star party with tons of Patron, cocaine, and strippers, or coming home after a 10-hour shift to a TV dinner and a dog, your brain gradually acclimates to your situation to a sort of, I'm doing all right. Turning up is actually a very accurate description of what needs to happen in order to escape that. If you're not constantly cranking the volume on the party, eventually the dopamine receptors in your brain are going to stop asking turn down for what, and just turn down. In short, every high necessarily comes to an end, and that end generally isn't a lot of fun. If you ask this guy, that's kind of the central truth of life. This is Siddhartha Gautama, most commonly referred to as the Buddha or the Awakened One. He's the central figure of Buddhism, a non-theistic religion which is very intimately linked to Little John's question. According to Buddhist tradition, Siddhartha started life as a rich prince with the ultimate in helicopter parents who did everything they could to keep his life free from suffering. It turns out that if you have enough money and power, you can actually manage that for quite some time. But at the tender age of 29, Siddhartha supposedly saw some unpleasant things on a carriage ride through the countryside. An old man, a diseased man, and a corpse. When he asked his carriage driver about them, he was shocked to learn that everybody grows old and eventually dies. Apparently, the 3 palaces and all the gold and parties that he wanted wasn't enough consolation for the knowledge that at some point in the future he was going to suffer, and he was pretty ill-equipped to deal with that. So he did what any reasonable person would do. He forsake his title and riches and went full ascetic, denying himself all comfort, begging for food, and eventually wandering off into the wilderness and starving himself until he eventually collapsed of malnutrition and almost drowned in a river. Actually, after that last part, Siddhartha sort of decided, okay, this isn't really that great either. This is actually the basis of one of the central tenets in Buddhism, the middle way. Basically that extremes, either of asceticism or hedonism or of any ideology, are to be avoided at all costs. After this revelation, Siddhartha is said to have eaten something, and then found a nice tree to sit and meditate under, until he eventually achieved enlightenment, a sort of mystical state of transcendence where the nature of reality was revealed to him. According to Buddhist texts, Siddhartha claimed that to live is to suffer, to be dissatisfied because humans crave and are attached to worldly things, which, by their nature, are always changing. Like, you might want a new tablet for Hanukkah. If you don't get it, you suffer. If you do get it, and it's not everything that you hoped it would be, you suffer. If you get it, and it's everything you hoped it would be, but you drop it and break the screen, then you suffer. And even if you get it, and it's perfect, and it does everything better than expected, and you don't break it, then, as per the hedonic treadmill, you'll get used to it. After a brief period of happiness, that will become the new okay in your life. And when the battery eventually dies, or a new band of Wi-Fi comes out that it doesn't support, or the manufacturer stops supporting it, and you have to eventually part with it, you suffer. Buddhism asserts that the only way to escape this cycle of suffering is to understand it intimately, to meditate and be mindful of what we're doing and why, instead of just giving in to our impulses and cravings and then being surprised afterward that they've led to suffering. There might actually be something to those ideas. There are proven cognitive and emotional benefits to the mindfulness and meditation that Buddhism recommends. Just sitting still and focusing on being in the moment for around 10 minutes a day has been clinically shown to be beneficial for all sorts of different things, from productivity to stress management to emotional well-being. But the Buddhist philosophy of detachment from worldly things is sort of contrary to many of the principles which are seen as foundations of Western society. I mean, the American dream isn't to learn how to be satisfied with what you have and seek happiness from within. For starters, you need a car, preferably a Mustang or a Corvette. Also, there's no indisputable reason to suggest that it's possible to be totally free from suffering the way that Buddhism suggests. I mean, if I go 6 hours without a snack, I don't just suffer, so does everyone around me. The state of enlightenment and nirvana posited by Buddhism sounds like a pretty awesome place to be, but like the concepts of heaven or utopia, it requires a massive investment of time and energy in order to find out, and there's no real guarantee that it's waiting at the end. One might view Little John and Siddhartha as being on opposite ends of a philosophical dichotomy. On the one hand, one might be able to achieve and maintain happiness by indulging in larger and larger excesses until death. On the other hand, one might be free of suffering by letting go of attachment to worldly things, maybe even achieving a state of peace. Or maybe happiness and suffering aren't the end-all of life in the first place. Maybe both Little John and Buddha are focusing on the wrong things. Is the purpose of life to live fast and die young, or to avoid suffering, or something else entirely? Turned down for what? It's not an easy question to answer. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to blah blah subscribe blah share, and don't stop thunking.